who's in charge of the Abdussalam Science Fair, can come up, and his assistant Haris Qureshi Saab. And I know Dr. Khalid Atta is here or will be here to help judge the posters. So your posters will go through a judging process just like at the Abdussalam Science Fair at USA Jalsa. And so, Kareem Bhai, if you can please, I just wanted to make the introduction. Please, if you can take over for this part.
So do we have 15 minutes for this? Because I think 2.5, 3 minutes for 5%, give us 15 minutes, and then 15 minutes for the panel discussion.
Maybe 20 minutes. Okay, maybe 2-3 minutes. Yeah, call them about 5.
And we will hold it right after lunch, right?
Right, during lunch, after lunch, yes.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So it is my honor today to introduce our program, which is the most exciting, I guess, from one perspective, most exciting program of the day, where our youth and some of the inspiring scientists are doing their work, and they have brought those in the form of a formal poster presentation, rather than giving you some sort of maybe boring talks. So there you will be able to see some pictures, some description, and the presenters will also have a chance to explain things, and you will be able to ask questions. This time we have kind of tried a new procedure for that. Previously, we used to invite presenters during the walkthrough of the science, and each presenter was given 3 minutes to present their work to the judge. And that was broadcasted to the whole audience here. This time, we decided that we would honor these presenters by inviting them on the podium here prior to the judging session, so they can give you a quick run-through within 3 minutes again. We do not have much time, so 3 minutes each. So I hope my moderator will time that. And with that little introduction, I would start calling those who have already registered, and I have the list. And then we will also invite somebody who might be missed. So going by the simple first come, first serve, I have Sohail Hussain, Dr. Sohail Hussain. Are you not presenting? Oh, he resigned.
In the interest of time, I think I'll give precedence to the other speakers.
Well, if you really want to know, there's only one more left. Ejaz Ahmed.
Assalamu alaikum. So I have a poster downstairs which is on a completely different project. This one's actually more organic chemistry related. So as we kind of look at organic chemistry, we have a toolbox of all these different reactions where we can essentially make any kind of molecule we want, as long as it's physically stable and we have unlimited funds and unlimited time. But we don't have unlimited funds and unlimited time. So we need to design reactions where we can engineer and make molecules more efficiently and more quickly. And one way of looking at that is if we try and analyze these molecules, the most abundant chemical bond that we have is a carbon-hydrogen bond. And normally what we would do in classical chemistry, basically the chemistry that's already established, is we would have to insert some sort of functionality at that carbon to form a bond with a carbon, and then use that new functionality to do another reaction to attach some sort of other functional group onto the molecule. So that's a two-step process. It produces a lot of waste, and it's also a lot of harmful waste. So in order to try and figure out a better way, why don't we try and take just that carbon-hydrogen bond and put the functionality group right on there in one step? So that's what was called CH activation, where we're activating a carbon-hydrogen bond, which is a very strong bond, but using transition metals to activate it to weaken that bond so that you can then functionalize it with another functional group. So what I've done is aerobic CH activation, where a carbon-hydrogen bond is being replaced with a carbon-oxygen bond using the oxygen that's already in the air. So we're not introducing oxygen from a balloon or another tank, we're just using the air, and the reaction is run open to air. And it's a very safe process using an iridium catalyst, a very inexpensive and commercially available iridium catalyst. And basically, this is sort of establishing a proof of concept. It's not something that is revolutionary or novel, but we're showing that an iridium catalyst can be used to form carbon-oxygen bonds from a carbon-hydrogen bond. So I would love for, if you guys have the time, just come and check it out. It should be a nice, bright red poster. Jazakallah.
Go ahead.
Okay, now we will be opening the forum to those who have not yet registered, but they are here and they raised their hands as well. And if you did not raise hand, you still have a chance. Enter in. But I would like to start with the youngest presenter first, to honor the youngest. So I will start by this. Anybody here age 7, 8, 9? Okay, we have 2. All right. You come first, you second. Please come up and take a chair. You can come, and when you come, you will give your name, because I would not know, and then introduce yourself. Dear, you can come sit up here. And while they are taking their positions, any other person who has been presenting right now, they can come up and take a seat there. And little boy, you can come. Yeah. Masroor? Yeah, come on. You start your presentation. While he's giving presentation, other presenters, please come up and take seats, so we will streamline from here rather than calling from the audience.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. My name is Masroor Haq. I'm 9 years old and I'm from Silver String Jamaat. Allah says in the Holy Quran, chapter 45, verse 14, and He has subjected to you whatsoever's in the heavens and whatsoever's in the earth. All this is from Him. In that surely are signs for a people who reflect. In light of Al-Quran, chapter 45, verse 14, we are encouraged to learn about the world around us and to make scientific inquiries so we can understand our Creator better. This experiment taught me that Allah has made ways for things to balance each other out. An acid is neutralized by a base. I wanted to find out what happens when vinegar is mixed with baking soda. My hypothesis was that a gas will be created when I mix vinegar with baking soda, and that gas will blow up a balloon. I used a small dosage cup and to pour 1 teaspoon of baking soda into a balloon. I filled 1/3 of a clear water bottle with vinegar. I stretched the balloon on the mouth of the water bottle. Then I lifted the balloon to drop the baking soda in the vinegar. The water created by the reaction made bubbles, and the gas created by the reaction started to blow up the balloon. I concluded that my hypothesis was correct. Mixing baking soda with vinegar caused the balloon to blow up. I learned that vinegar is an acid and baking soda is a base. When an acid and base are mixed together, the chemical reaction creates water and carbon dioxide. Water is a liquid. It made the bubbles in the vinegar. The carbon dioxide is a gas. It made the balloon blow up. Thank you for your time.
At this point, I would invite Hisham Wilkes up, please. Come on.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Hisham Virk. I'm 11 years old and I'm from Silver Spring Jamaat. I think you should come to my science fair project because it talks about how modern satellites can collect stardust and how it can study astronomical phenomenons like meteors and comets. Meteors and comets don't do well with each other. Sometimes meteors can run into a comet, creating an explosion. And satellites with new technology have gel on it, like some smart gel thing that I researched, and it collects the stardust from the comet that exploded. And that way we can study about the interior of comets and other comet things. Yeah. Okay, thank you for your time.
Interesting. Very good. Exactly.
Jazakumullah, and now I invite Haris Chowdhury.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Haris Chaudhry. I am 13 years old and I am from Laurel Jamaat. My project title is called The Secret of Life. Life teems across our world from the tiniest fly to the largest whale on earth. But the phenomenon of life always amazes us as to how we began. Life began on Earth 4 billion years ago in primordial oceans when 6 common elements, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur, combined to create an organism that eventually turned to animals. My project was to explore these 6 elements and how they formed. These 6 elements formed in the oceans, which provided some consequences and some good things. The good things were that the ocean waves and currents carry these elements to combine with each other. The consequences was hydrolysis. Hydrolysis is an effect in which water breaks down a compound, and this also happened onto our compound. So the issue was, how did life form when water kept destroying the early compound? The answer we also found in the Holy Quran, and scientists had recently discovered this as well. The answer had become that when waves crashed onto the primordial rocks and clay, the compound was left behind on the rock and was left to dry. This was called polymerization. Without water, the compound could become more complex and form better. And the clay rocks in which they had formed upon had also sped up the process. The Holy Quran also talks about it in many verses throughout, explaining the clay as pottery because the clay had been formed in many thin layers, and it had described the early compound as black stagnant mud. This is very surprising because scientists had only found this out centuries later, and the Holy Quran had already talked about this subject. Jazakallah.
Jazakumullah, and now I invite Christopher Juan, sir, please, to give you an intro.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum. So my name is Christopher Kalajani. I am currently working on my master's in general psychology with a focus in neuroscience, specifically social, affective, and behavioral neuroscience. So unfortunately I had some technical difficulties with printing, so my physical poster is not there, but I was asked to at least come up and speak on it. So my project currently that I'm working on is looking at how does the environment that's around us make the changes to us And what does that really mean? And beyond just simply saying we eat too much or we don't eat enough or those types of things. So through my studies, what I've looked at is the epigenetics. Epigenetics being the non-genetic material that's around our genes, the things that we really kind of ignored for very long, and looking at this and saying, this has no effect really. And what we now know is that that's wrong. The Holy Quran has told us for many, many years that obviously we should do certain things, not do certain things. But what we now have connections with is that this means even more than what we thought before. So when we talk about being modest, qadi basar, right, looking away, not looking at things, we now know that from the eye tracking studies, we can look at this and say that the eye is drawn to human flesh faster than any other object. We know this. And so looking at this and having certain thoughts, we now know from a cognitive perspective that the thoughts that we have actually affect the non-genetic material that surrounds our genes. And while it doesn't change the way that our genes actually work, it does change the way that those genes are expressed. Meaning it changes the way that you have potentially a disorder or a disease that maybe you had some type of an underlying genetic predisposition for. But what you think, what you see, what you eat, what you smell, what you breathe, everything around you affects that. And whether or not that comes out or not, through many different mechanisms, things like methylation of the DNA, which is a natural process that can be accelerated through these multiple other functions. So we now understand that that means that if we're looking at things that we shouldn't be, and we are having thoughts that we shouldn't be, this can actually affect that non-genetic material. It can change the way that our genes are expressed, but even more so, we now also understand that this is transgenerational, and it can go for up to 3 generations. There's distinct evidence within mice studies right now that we can see direct correlation with this that says if you as a man are eating a poor diet, that your consumption of high caloric, high cholesterol, high sugar, high salt, these things directly affect the non-genetic material in your body, and most affects the sexual organs, specifically the sperm, because they are created in such large amounts. And this is what then carries through, not only to the child, but to the mother. So, to wrap all of that up, the epigenetic materials that men house in their bodies is passed on. Allah Ta'ala tells us that, your hands will testify against you. This is true. Even though you may not know it, your non-genetic material will testify against you even if you can't see it, even if you don't know it. The next piece of that is that we are to be the representative for our offspring, for our wives. This is in everything, because truthfully, the epigenetics of our body directly affect us in that. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah for that wonderful presentation. And now I would invite Tahir Ahmad Sahib to come give your presentation. And while he is coming, is there anyone yet who has not come and would like to present?
Assalamualaikum, my name is Tahir Ahmed. If you're interested in gene editing, come check out my poster. It's primarily about CRISPR-Cas9 system, and also more from a commercial point of view, some of the challenges that are faced by the scientists in implementation of it, and which is mostly the screening process. So yeah, gene editing and a little bit about marketing commercialization aspect of that process. So check it out.
Well, this is what is called short and sweet. Any presenter who still would like to participate and has not registered is among the audience. Last call. Okay, if not, Jazakumullah for all the participants. You can take seats now, and with that, I'll give the podium over to our moderator again for panel discussion.
So this session is basically running up until the start of namaz, which is at 1:30, I believe. So this gives us about 18 minutes to have the conversation. If we can squeeze in a couple more minutes, we might get 20 minutes. So basically, now the discussion is open for everyone to ask about the conversations and talks we had in the last 10 minutes. Let me just quickly recap so that if you have any questions, if you want to register. The first talk was on the rare earth elements by Dr. Ijaz Ahmed Sahab. And I would request him to come, everyone who presented, to kindly come forward and have a seat with us so that the audience can see and they can ask questions. The second was by Dr. Hamid Mirza on the notion of chirality and how does Quran speak about that. The third was on the topic of pancreatitis and how you can solve that using drug asparaginase by Dr. Nayir Khokhar. And the fourth one was on by Dr. Altaf Qadir on how the Quran enhances or asks us to enhance educational networks. And yes, and I forgot my own on connected vehicles. So. Yeah, please go ahead and.
Assalamu alaikum, Habib Mirza from Potomac Majlis. I wanted to ask about the. Assalamu alaikum, Habib Mirza from Potomac. My question is for Sayyid Amar Ahmed Saab about the DSRC security, because you mentioned the hacker stuff and all that. So, I mean, is there any development undergoing in that perspective?
Right, that is actually a very important area of research, wireless security for DSRC connected vehicles, because someone can hack, spoof GPS positions, create problems. So there are many countermeasures that are being developed right now to address that. Countermeasures to, let's say, disable that transmitter, because whenever a message is transmitted, there is what's called a security certificate on top of that loaded into the message. So if the message does not have that, then you can disregard that. On the other hand, if someone tries to misbehave, you can also disregard that by sending a warning to the centralized network. That's the idea behind it, that you will eventually report all your issues to a centralized authority, which will then revoke those vehicles from transmitting. But obviously, that does not stop someone from illegally transmitting over the air. But that is one issue that can still be resolved by, let's say, triangulating and figuring out where that transmitter is coming from. So there are many techniques that are being developed, but this is a game in which the malicious, let's say, aspects would obviously try to outdo the standard, and there's a game going on between who will do the first. The question is, or the answer to that is obviously that you have to stay ahead of the technology. And it's an evolving field. It's more like hacking in the networking world also. So there's no definitive answers as to how you would come up with the final solution. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah to each of the speakers. It was a really exciting session. Other than from Dr. Ijaz, whose talk was about separating earth metals, most of the talks were about connecting things together. And that reminded me of a verse of the Holy Quran in Surah Yasin, where Allah Ta'ala mentions the orbits, and Allah Ta'ala says, Kullun fi falakin yasbahun, that even though they seem like they're apart, they're connected together as if they were connected by a string. And so, I mean, it just made me think about the fact that besides what we know now, perhaps there is another form or dimension of connectedness that we could understand between vehicles, between neurons, and in many ways to and exploit that to understand how to avoid ramming into one another.
I would ask my panelists to just step forward, as whatever comments you may have to, so.
Jazakallah for making this wonderful comparison of connectivity and disconnectivity. And both aspects are important in order to redefine our current knowledge and insight, wisdom, and our understanding of Holy Quran. And as I mentioned, that Allah gives us that guidance if we apply those aspects. And wherever Allah has mentioned that with His attributes like Al-Khaliq, Al-Musawwir, and we understand Holy Quran from this dimension that we can also have a reflection of those attributes in ourselves. So as human beings, if we have those attributes which are related in those passages, we will find that this is very interesting link, which attribute to apply on a certain point. And all the sciences are now moving in this dimension of connecting various ideas instead of separating them. And even at the school level, you will see the word like STEM are now emerging, science, technology, engineering, and math, in order to incorporate the connectivity of various subjects. And as another brother mentioned, I don't know his name, we can also do the social neuroscience aspect of the various dimensions mentioned in the Holy Quran, that how social aspects can be tested. And in this way, we can prove that Holy Quran is ahead of sciences. We will take hours from the Holy Quran, test it on human being in the social science and in the genetic methodologies like microgenetic method, and then we can prove Holy Quran was correct even centuries ago. So that argument that we can take something from Holy Quran and prove in science is actually applicable in this context. Jazakallah.
My name is Rahman. I'm from the Raleigh Jamaat. I have just a broad question for the scientific community within the Jamaat. So my question is, this symposium is about science of the Holy Quran. The Holy Quran inspires us to reflect and forms Allah as the basis of knowledge. But in recent history, most of the scientific discoveries come from non-Muslims and non-believers. So how do we reconcile this fact with the motivations of this symposium?
Jazakallah. I think this is...
My question clarified.
Yes.
I think it's...
This is an excellent question, which this is the actually basis of the symposium which we are holding here in USA and in Canada, so that we can motivate our youths and our scientists and our professionals to reflect on the Holy Quran, because Holy Quran invites us to reflect on processes, phenomena which are occurring, and then contribute to the betterment of mankind. And our Khulafa, Promised Messiah Islam, and if you go beyond, then Holy Prophet himself, he has the embodiment of those examples where he contributed and he instructed Muslims and believers to come forward. Now, the Muslim Ummah, unfortunately, it was at the peak of the glory when at the height of this scientific development, when they were following these instructions. But when they left, then they went into the darkness. So this is our responsibility as scientists to come forward and to shed the light on the teaching of the Holy Quran, seek guidance from it, and then share with the other communities around us, so that they can benefit from the Holy Quran, and we again regain that glory of Islam, which was at one time known all across the globe.
Sorry, what I was trying to say was a lot of the inspiration is outside the Quran, and most of the discoveries have come outside of the Quran from non-believers. So how do you reconcile this kind of forum with having the fact that most of the discoveries are outside of the Quran?
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. This is Hamid Naseem. Sayyidina Mirza Ghulam Ahmad ﷺ in his book Ijazul Masih explains that Allah's two major attributes are Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim. So he says that these are the two aspects, attributes of Allah through which all other attributes of Allah flow. So the Quran talks about this matter, and it says Allah is Ar-Rahman, and thereby He gives without any deserving, anybody's deserving, any animals deserving anything. So He gives the sun to everybody. He gives the moon to shine over everybody and does whatever it is supposed to do without any distinction. He created all these things for us millions of years ago, or even billions of years ago, so that we could benefit from it today. So in that, He doesn't distinguish. He has that characteristic, Ar-Rahman, and a lot of things fall under that. And also it says, as Masih Islam says, His name is Ar-Rahim, where He asks us to make an effort whereby He rewards us. And it could be in the religious aspect, or it could be in the physical aspect. Allah says there are people who ask, give us in this world, and they will be given in this world. They have la khalaqa lahum fil akhirah. In the other world, they have no share of that. So in other words, this is Allah's law that if you seek, you will be given. So in that sense, if the Muslims just sleep day and sleep at night and don't ask Allah about anything, despite the fact that Quran has given these fundamental basic truths in them, then they will not be given. And if the Christians or the atheists are looking for it, like Masih Islam said, when you think about it, when you put your thoughts together, this is all part of dua, asking Allah about the ghaib. This is also dua. So they are asking the dua not in our normal sense of the word meaning, but Hazrat Masih Islam has explained it to us.
If I may add, if you can come here, because we're having issues with that microphone and the questions cannot be heard at the back. If you can come here and ask the questions.
Yeah. Just to add in this, Allah Ta'ala also says in the Holy Quran that even if you do an iota of work, it will not be wasted. It will be rewarded. And this is for everyone, whether it is believer or non-believer. So when we ponder, then every effort, whoever put it, he will get reward.
I may want to add one point. The fundamental premise is the atheists work, obviously, because they're excited by science, they're interested in the questions, and they are very passionate. Many of them are not religious or agnostic. The reason why we're having this symposium is that we believe that in some fundamental sense, those sciences are not beyond the realm described by Quran. It means that Quran is not limited in time and space. It's providing inspiration in bits and pieces, if that's the right expression to use, for all of us. Now, whether we benefit from that or not is a separate issue, but it's out there as part of our belief that if this is the Word of God, then there has to be inspiration on scientific matters also. Perhaps not as a book of science, but perhaps as a book of wisdom which guides and illuminates our moral and scientific compass. So that is a slightly different answer. It doesn't mean that every scientific discovery will be, discovered from Quran like a drop of a hat, but the nucleus of that discovery, in some sense, might be traceable. And again, the answer to that may also be that it depends on the level of taqwa, because as Quran itself mentioned, it's a book for those who are rightly guided, or at least who follow that. So there's definitely an element of being subjective about it, but that's my 2 cents on that issue. So,
yeah. MashaAllah, another set of tremendous presentations by everyone. My question is for Marsa, you. The DSRC equipped vehicles, I understand all the vehicles in the area will have to have the technology in order to for accident or incident prevention.
That is true.
So it will be a technology in addition to radar and
that is correct.
And photo cameras. Okay. So I just wanted that clarification. I wanted to ask about this accident that happened with autonomous vehicles, but I'll pass on that. Another question is for Ijaz. We talked about taking an engine and basically extracting rare metals from it. I would imagine the process would involve grinding, melting, fractional distillation, and all that.
Yes, it does.
So is that process, the one you're developing, is cost prohibitive at this point, or would it be?
It uses very simple chemistry. The patent has gone through. I don't know if the patent's been approved. Our goal is to put it into some sort of have it more commercially produced, or something that is done more on a larger scale. Because basically the motor that the biggest motor that we got was just a simple, it wasn't like a giant, taking a large amounts of this and doing it. But it is very simple chemistry. We use minimal amounts of hydrochloric acid to dissolve after grinding it. And well, initially we have to demagnetize it because those are magnets, and we demagnetize by heating in a furnace oven over a couple of days, and then grind it in a large grinder. And usually we need to go for something large. We need to get a commercial grinder and stuff. But it is something that's much more cost effective, especially if we're isolating 80% of the rare earth elements from it.
Okay. One other quick question for all panelists. We talk about, and we have right now, we are finding, today's science is telling us this, and Quran said this 1400 years ago. How can we, as scientists in general, can look at, any advice, I guess I'm asking for, look at Quran and project in the future or work towards new discoveries?
We have one more question here. 1 minute. So
ask him, and then if I can ask the question, maybe. If you can ask the question, and then we'll try to combine those answers.
Okay, so two very simple questions for Amar Saab and Ijaz Saab. So Amar Saab, in the Holy Quran, when Hazrat Nuh alayhi salam embarked on his boat, Allah Ta'ala says that its course and its mooring will be in the name of Allah. Means its starting and stopping is in the name of Allah. Is there any hint or any kind of, have you thought about it, that can it give any insight into cars or driving or vehicles, they start and they're stopping? So that's one small question. For Ijaz Sahab, as many presenters presented, that there is a measure in the universe, and Allah Ta'ala says don't exceed that measure. So just my short question is, these rare earth metals, are they really needed? If you say that the availability is limited and we keep using more and more, is there a limited quantity in earth, or is this the inability of us to extract it? And is there any alternative than using these rare earth metals and using something else? Jazakallah.
I'll answer my question. It's a very interesting point you have raised. I've not thought of that. I'll think of this now. And on the question of, I'll try to very briefly answer the question of, retroactive answering. We always, criticism is that, this was found in Quran or that was found in Quran. Well, what does it inform about the future? So, there are two predictions that we kind of know, but we know the answers is negative at the moment. Alien life, for example. We've heard about that from Hazrat Khalifa Rabi's answers that, and it's based in Quran, that there is going to be alien life also because there's a Rabbul Alameen. So that's one prediction. So when that comes true, we can say that, this was already there. So that is one small answer, I think, to many discoveries. Another example is the concept of a universe that is opening and closing back through Big Bang and Big Crunch. Current scientific research tells that cosmos is going to continue on expanding. Actually, there was a couple of Nobel Prizes back in 2011 that they showed that the universe is expanding at accelerating rate. Now, obviously, that goes against the current that current understanding goes against what we understand from those verses, if that is the right interpretation that the universe will come back again. Perhaps there'll be new scientific evidence that will show that indeed that is how it's going to happen, and the current acceleration is just a temporary phase. Maybe that would also answer that question, that perhaps Quran was right in that sense, if our interpretation or understanding was correct. So I'll answer, that's my answer, and I'll hand it over to Ijaz Sahab to answer.
Jazakallah. So a lot of the technologies that we are using, we're starting to implement more rare earth elements into that because of the attractive properties. But Allah Ta'ala is the provider. So if it comes to a point where we find something newer or better, then that may then replace our use or requirement of rare earth elements. But currently, because of our interest in developing solar panels, wind turbines, and cleaner energy that use these rare earth elements, within the next couple of decades, there's going to be a shortage of these. And the shortage is mostly because of the rarity that we have in the ground, that there isn't enough there, and also the difficulty, as I mentioned, the difficulty in mining of it. So,
Jazakallah, sorry for cutting short. I think we're 1:30, so it's namaz time. I would request everyone, if they have to go out for wuzu and come back, we'll be having Zohar namaz. And right after that, we have lunch. And the next session will be starting at 2:30. There will be the men's hall for the AAMS general meeting. And then for the Atfal, there's a science kitchen down below in the basement. So 2:30, we start again. Of course, no one should forget the lunch. And it's going to be namaz, Zohar namaz right now. So Jazakallah for your patience. Assalamu alaikum.